We be live.
Hello.
I knew it. Like it is. Hello.
Just have to give a little bit of dramatic anticipation.
Yes. Hi everyone. We're gonna be doing Q&A. We're gonna first go through the Patreon questions, and then we're gonna go through the live chat questions. So keep sending your live chat questions in the live chat. Me and Susanna, when we see them, we're gonna start them, and then we're gonna come back to them at the end of the Patreon questions. So for people who don't know, if you are a patron on Patreon with us, then you get to send your questions ahead of time, and your questions will get priority, and we'll spend a bit more time answering your questions as patrons. And then it's also guaranteed that your questions will be answered. And also it means that if you can't be here live with us, we will still read your questions. So it's good for people who can't be live as well. Okay, live chat questions, we'll try to get as many of them as we can, but there's no guarantee. But for Patreon questions, as long as it's actually a question, because sometimes on Patreon we get like an essay or a statement disguised as a question, but it has to actually be a question for us to get to them. Okay. Cool. So let's start with the Patreon questions.
Yes, and finally, that's not all you get if you are one of our patrons. You also get access to all of our uncensored, sexy, blasphemous art. And you can get all of these perks for as little as $1 a month. So check out our Patreon link in the description below.
So Occult Wiccan is saying our beloved Rasul Navabi, peace be upon him, is here. Okay. Oh, thank you. Rasul means like a prophet in Islam. Nabi, well, Rasul and Nabi. Can we? I know there's a lot of Patreon questions, but can we start with something relevant to Russia and Ukraine, because it would be weird, like if we don't start.
With given what happened. Well, we have a Patreon question about it, so that's easy.
I know. Yeah. So like, can we start with that one?
Because
like,
yes.
Yeah, because it would be
Okay, guys. I think most of us probably know what's going on. Secular Sakai is asking, elephant in the room. The current invasion of Ukraine by Russia. Analysis. Armin, I'll let you go first because I don't have as much to say.
Yes, you do. We talked about this. You always have a lot.
I qualified my statement. I was going to say I have nothing to say, but you specifically told me not to say that. So that's not
okay. Well, guys, Susanna has so many good takes when we're just talking privately, but like she doesn't think like she's qualified. But like I can tell like she's way more qualified than so many people. But when I see her like analyze things privately with me, I like. Okay, so we just need to give her more confidence. Okay, but yeah, okay. So first of all, I know this is about Ukraine and Russia, but I just want people to think. I don't want to dismiss how important Ukraine is, okay? But I want people to think about this the implications of this worldwide, okay? This is a lot more significant than just what's happening between Russia and Ukraine. Well, we have had a world order unlike anything the history of mankind has ever seen before since World War II. And I know a lot of idiots out there don't understand that because of this world order, because of this international agreement that we have had since then, me, you, and everybody else has enjoyed a relative time of peace and stability that has never been on record in the history of civilization. And I know a lot of you morons don't believe that, because you turn on the news and you see wars and killing and crime and corruption, and you, just like every other generation that came before you, think that you're living at the worst of times, even though you're living at the best of times. And even though most generations in history have lived in the best of times, not all of them, this is especially true with our generation. The past 100 years has been exceptionally better than anything that came before it. And this is mostly mostly because world powers got together and because of the horrors of World War II decided that we're not going to do that again. Okay? Okay? This is why the terms colonialism has been now replaced with neocolonialism, because those things, messing with borders, even wars happen between smaller countries. Okay? Nuclear powers, they just don't walk in and challenge the borders of another UN recognized country. That just doesn't happen anymore. It shouldn't be happening anymore. Okay? The whole world, especially the Western world, the civilized world, and everyone else actually needs to be united against Putin. Again, I'm trying to be careful because I'm actually very careful when it comes to Iran. I don't say Iran, I say the Islamic Republic of Iran. But we need to do this now with Russia as well, because people keep saying, and I do that as well, like Russia is doing this, Russia is doing that. This is not Russia, okay? This is Putin. And I'm so grateful for all the Russians that just came out recently. I don't know if you guys saw St. Petersburg and Moscow and many other places. They're filled with Russians. Thousands of Russians are now in the streets asking for the war to stop, saying no to war. Okay, we have to highlight these people because this is not the world against Russians. This is the world against Putin. Okay, this is one man taking Russia. This is not just, it's not just Ukraine that is a victim here. Russia is going to be a major victim here, especially if this war continues. Okay, Putin is sacrificing not just Ukraine for his ambitions, he's also sacrificing Russia. Okay, this is going to be Russia's Vietnam if it keeps moving in the direction that it is. Okay, Russia's economy is going to suffer. Russian people are going to suffer. Russia deserves so much better than Putin. So much better than Putin. Okay, and the West needs to be goddamn united. Again, I keep saying the West. I should stop saying the West, given that how many, like, I don't know if you guys saw the speeches by African countries, especially Kenya, against Putin. They were beautiful. Okay, so this is not just the West. The world needs to be united. But the reason why we're saying the West needs to be united, because they have the most of the power and they could do the most. And it was so embarrassing to see Germany up until now playing footsie with whether or not they're going to cut the gas Nord Stream pipeline with Russia or not. Like, I'm glad they finally gave in and they're like, okay, we're like putting a stop to that. Okay, but they should have done that way earlier. Okay, like, let me just go through the list. The biggest mistake by Merkel was saying no to nuclear power after what happened in Japan. That was a major mistake. Major mistake, made Germany and Europe a lot more reliant on Russia. Okay. Major mistake by France, keep on insisting of making a European army rather than focusing on strengthening NATO. You guys have nothing without the support of United States. You need to get closer to United States against China, against the CCP, against Putin, and against the Islamic Republic of Iran. Okay, the world needs to be united against forces that are a source of conflict, a source of challenging the world order. Okay, like, and if this is a norm setting that will affect everybody. If you think like, well, I don't live there, it has nothing to do with me, it has everything to do with you. You're just too stupid to realize it. You have no idea how much your life is right now better because of the level of trade and stability that all of this world order has. Like, I don't know if people realize that it was the taking of Crimea that set the new norm, that other countries like felt emboldened that they could just go around and do stuff like this, and there's not going to be that much of a challenge from Western powers, right? This cannot be the new norm. If the European countries and if North America are not united on this, okay, that means that you're allowing this to become the new norm that we had completely gotten, like, what to a major extent have made it so that it's not possible anymore in the 21st century. Okay, now we're entering a phase where a country with nuclear power is now feels like, guys, this is like no other country has been able to do so much to damage this world order. Okay, China would never do something like this with with Taiwan. Like, I mean, I hope not, because China has a lot more to lose. Okay, this is so there's three major countries that are a challenge to this whole world order that is providing peace. Okay, the Islamic Republic of Iran has a lot more to lose, so they're a lot bigger aggressors, but they have a lot less power, and they're not a nuclear power. Well, not yet. And also the instability that they create is mostly in the Middle East, a place where the world doesn't seem to care about as much as this instability causing in Europe, right? Because Europe is considered to be a much more peaceful place compared to the Middle East. So if you can bring this instability to Europe, that will be a much greater challenge to what is the new norm into the world and what the Islamic Republic of Iran can do. So that leaves out Iran as a major, until Iran becomes a nuclear power. We'll see what happens then. And China also. China, a lot of is to a major extent against the forces of good here, because they are normalizing illiberalism. They're funding illiberalism. They're bringing they're a major source of tyrants, realizing that they have alternatives to the world financial system. That doesn't mean that they have to clean up their human rights record back at home. And coups are becoming a lot more normal, because funding coups is not as taboo as anymore, because China is an alternative in Africa, for example, to provide financing for people that, again, do things that, other Western powers would not tolerate when it comes to trade and financing. So China is a major source of challenging the world order. But at the same time, military-wise, China would not be as aggressive as Russia, because China is very much invested in all of this in Europe, for example, right? I think, like China's involvement in Europe and the United States, and the debt market and the labor market and in the industrial market, everything is so much that if you cannot challenge that, because it feeds upon that, right? Russia is like, again, Russia, Putin is like a cornered dog that can't do nothing but bite. Okay, so relative to China, relative to CCP and the Islamic Republic of Iran, Putin is the most dangerous one right now. Okay, it is a country with nuclear power, and it has a lot more to lose. That's why it's acting the way it is, and it's less integrated into the world's economy than China is. And it has a lot more power than the Islamic Republic of Iran is. So this threat needs to be eliminated. Okay, Putin needs to be put in its place. He needs to be humiliated. Okay, whether the war stops, it needs to be, Putin needs to be turned into a pariah for forever. And if the war continues, Ukraine needs to become Putin's Vietnam. It needs to be something. Unfortunately, the Russian people will be paying the price. But again, it's harsh to say, but it's the price that we have to pay. Russia's economy needs to crumble because of this. It has to be, we have to set the norm for people to see that this is the price you pay for messing with peace, messing with stability. Russia's economy needs to be made an example of. Everyone has to see that maybe, I don't know, France and United States sometimes fight with each other, or submarines in Australia, and Germany and United States disagree with each other, Nord Stream pipeline. But the signal that needs to be sent to the world is that when you get to this level of instability, the disagreements go away, the world comes together, and they stand united against bullies like Putin. If we could show that, then there's hope for us to make what Putin is doing not the new normal. For every other country to take note that this is what happens to you if you cause instability in the world, if you bring war. So this situation has to be taken advantage of to make an example out of Putin by crushing Russia's economy. And again, this is very unfair to the Russian people, but it has to be done for the sake of peace around the world. Anyways.
I think all very well put. Hindu historian was saying, "Hi, I'm here for the Russia-Ukraine discussion, of course."
Yeah.
I think my only analysis isn't necessarily to do with this issue in particular. This is more personal reflection for myself, and it is a function of my age or my generation. You know, like, so we were talking to each other last night, and I think one of the first things you said when we saw each other was like, well, the war has started. And I was just thinking about what a weird moment that is. You know, when 9/11 happened, I was really young. It was the year before I started kindergarten. And it felt like the world stopped. Of course, this is from the mind of a child, right? So maybe it was different for adults. Um, and then I remember like the invasion of Iraq. It felt like the world stopped. Every morning in my Catholic school, we would pray for the soldiers. And it's so uncanny to experience this in my adulthood now, because that's what I was telling you last night. It was like, I feel like, you know, when growing up, you get the sense that, oh, when things like this happen, where I'm cognizantly aware that this is what is setting the tone for the remainder of this century, the magnitude of this event, how much life just goes on the same. I still go to my job, you know, still got to go pick up my groceries. I still have to go do my dumb errands and chores. I didn't get the same feeling that the world stopped what I did when I was younger. I don't know how to think about that. I wonder if other people feel the same way. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I mean, maybe Ukrainians are feeling a little more like that. Also, it hasn't yet been as devastating as those attacks, so we'll see.
Mhm.
Two other things I think we should highlight is all of the idiots who kept on saying like, "Oh, the war is not going to happen. The war is not going to happen," because again, it's okay if you had wrong predictions. Many people have wrong predictions, but the reasoning was that Putin, no, so like the Biden administration is just fear mongering, just like they did with the weapons of mass destruction when it comes to Saddam. Okay. And if you say that Putin is going to attack Ukraine, you are just a bootlicker that believes the regime and whatever they tell you. Um, it's so amazing because what they were saying, like the level of self awareness was unbelievably low because they were basically accepting what Putin was saying, right? So they were like doing the people who are saying that when we believe, because the Biden administration's predictions of what's happening, what was about to happen, was ended up being so unbelievably accurate. Like they even said the reasonings that Putin is going to use for every stage of this game, and Putin was on script every moment. Like he's like, okay, now he's going to say this, and he said it. Well, now next he's going to say this, and he said it. Like even the excuses that Putin was going to make was predicted, and it just happened exactly like they predicted it. But we were being accused, like we were taking that warning by the Biden administration seriously. We were accused of falling for a lie, just like people fell for the lie of the weapons of mass destruction claim by the Bush administration, right? But they ended up being those people, okay? The people who just fell, like their anti-Americanism has blinded them so much that they didn't realize that in this moment of history, the people who were believing Putin were the same people who were believing the Bush administration's lies about the WMDs, not us. Okay, so it was you. Okay, not us. One point. Okay, so second, another thing I wanted to point out is that the claim by Putin, okay, that they're going to Ukraine to denazify Ukraine is so unbelievably rich. Okay, first of all, you're talking about a country who elected a Jewish president as a country that needs denazification. Okay, Ukraine has a Jewish president. Okay, so and also you're making the argument for an invasion of Ukraine. Okay, the argument that you're making is based on blood and soil argument. Okay, you're talking about, oh, these people are ethnically the same, would they belong to each other? Who does that remind you of? Okay, who does that remind you?
They
Okay.
belong to like us.
They belong to us because of blood ties. This is like, you sound like Hitler. Okay, so again, you might say like, oh, Armin, this is Godwin's law and blah 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 blah. They're making that argument. The people who are claiming that they're going to Ukraine to denazify it are the people who are making the exact same arguments for why this territory belongs to us, when for Hitler going into Poland. Okay, these are our people. These people are like ethnically the same. We have a history with each other. Who gives a crap? Okay, guys, go listen to the representative of Kenya, okay, about this whole blood and soil and borders and ethnicity, therefore history, and therefore these lands belong to us. Go listen to his speech. I might actually just do a review on that speech, okay? I've never seen anybody explain it so much better, okay? You do not mess with borders. I don't care how much sense of belonging you feel with the people on the other side of the border. These are the borders we have. Messing with it is going to be a lot more costly than whatever like cultural or nostalgic or bring back this history, or like, oh, we share the same genes, the same mothers, the same DNA, the same language. Oh, my mother's told the same story to us when we were growing up, then they tell like we have the same level. Nobody gives a fucking fuck. Okay, these are the borders
like, who cares
have.
about
These are the borders you have. We have a record of every time anybody tries to move these. Like, oh, another argument. These were the borders defined to us by imperialist power. Okay, now when they were changing it, things got like people. There was blood. There was blood in the streets. Whenever people when they were doing it. So now that you have these borders, just keep it. Don't mess with it. Change it. Don't change it. It's good. Just deal with whatever you have right now. Don't mess with borders, because the cost to human lives ends up being a lot more than whatever bullshit story that you come up with. And also, talking about blood and ethnicity is just cringe. I mean, come on. We're in the 21st century, okay? Get over that bullshit. Nobody cares about whose blood you share with what people, okay? We just want to live in peace, regardless of our blood, okay? Regardless of our DNA. Nobody should give a flying fuck about any of this, okay? Like, yeah, anyways.
Well, we have Haris Sultan in live chat. Haris is agreeing with a lot of your analysis, Armin. And he's saying, I'm literally flabbergasted watching people living in the West sucking Putin's dick. Okay, the one thing, I've been avoiding social media because, one, I have absolutely no ability to verify most of what I see on there regarding this conflict. So I just don't put any credence on that. But the one thing I have enjoyed is seeing threads of tankies getting absolutely roasted for their takes on this, and how wrong they were on the whole thing, and how everything they said, what's happened over the past few days is just like a complete, proving them completely wrong. So,
you know
that was the only good thing.
You know who's the main person that did this, that I want to say a major fuck you to? Trump. Did you see Trump coming out and praising Putin over this? Guys, this is why anybody who didn't vote, any American who didn't vote for Biden could go get fucked, okay? Imagine if Trump was in power. Like right now, we're worried about whether Germany is going to be aligned with United States and being aggressive, and with France and everybody else and being aggressive enough against Putin. Imagine if Trump was in power. Trump just came out recently praising Putin. The former president of the United States right now is praising Putin. Imagine if that motherfucker was in power right now. We wouldn't have to worry about whether the world is united against Putin. We would have to worry about whether the United States itself is united against Putin. Like, somebody shut that guy up. Like, I can't wait for this man to pass away. Seriously. Like, you have
oh my goodness.
Like, seriously, like, you're such a toxic. God damn it. Everything he says, I'm glad that he turned into a clown. Like, the world has realized that he was a clown, okay? Because if any other former president right now coming out and praising Putin would have been made United States look a lot more divided than it is. Right now, we need unity against Putin, okay? So Trump is such a fucking major joke that nobody is taking his statement over praising Putin as a sign of disunity in the United States, right? Like the amount of the major advantage of having the Biden administration right now is that a united voice is coming out of the United States, okay, and that's what we need right now. That's what we need right now. So thank you to the Biden administration. No matter, again, we're going to have a lot of criticism for Biden's administration, but right now, they are leading the way. This is why we need United States, okay? As many crimes as United States have committed around the world, and we're going to blame them for every single one of them, and we're going to highlight them, but there is no other force right now that could do better when it comes to leading the world against destabilization, the United States, okay? Pick another superpower, right? Who do you want to have in charge? You want to have China in charge as a superpower? Did you want to have like the former Soviet Union in charge? Like, as flawed as the United States is, there is no other country. Like, look at Germany. Like, they did not have the backbone to take a lead on this, right? They were supposed to be the lead. They're supposed to be the leading country in the European Union, and they were like, but yes, motherfuckers, we're like talking about all the standards that has made trade and stability possible ever since World War II. Okay, yes, energy prices are going to go up. Deal with it. This is the cost. Germany has paid a much bigger cost in recent history when it comes to getting the world order. So I'm sure higher gas prices is not a cost that we shouldn't be willing to pay. Okay, I know it's going to be difficult. Markets are going to crash. People are going to be poor. People are going to suffer. The working class is going to suffer extremely. There's going to be a lot of discomfort coming forward, but it's worth it. This is the price that we have to pay to make sure that Putin does not set the new norm for how international politics are done.
Okay. Do you want to look at some pushback you've received, or get into the rest of the patron questions?
No, let's do the pushbacks a little bit.
So basically, Philip is giving you a lot of flack in the live chat, saying if it's wrong for Russia to invade Ukraine, which it is, why was it okay for the West to bring their nose into the Libyan affairs back in 2011? And also bringing up invading Central America and the Middle East.
Okay, you're not listening. You're not listening. We're not the kind of people that defends the United States over everything they do. Okay, so I don't know what made you think that we think we're saying like what, Philip? Are you like the mayor of whataboutism? Like, how is this working? Like, what does this got to do with what we're saying? Okay, do we say that Russia should be put in its place because of what it's doing? Therefore, United States has done everything correct, and there's no flaw with the politics and the like. Are you new here? Because we have a record of criticizing United States, and especially I could provide you a bigger list than what you're doing. Okay, look at the war crimes that United States committed in Cambodia. Okay, look at the support that United States has for Saudi Arabia and being responsible for the greatest humanitarian crisis right now in Yemen. Your examples are not even significant. United States like dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan. Like, I have a bigger list than you. Okay, I have a bigger list than you. What does this got to do with us saying that the world needs to be united against Russia, against Putin, not against Russia, against Putin right now? What does this got to do with what we're saying? Okay, like you're like, you're saying that we're claiming the United States has no foreign policy, has no flaws. You're pulling shit out of your ass. Like, do you not see how what you're talking about is just like it's whataboutism? What does this got to do with what we're saying? It has no relevancy to what we're saying.
I have such a childish sense of humor. Hera Sultan is, I can't wait for Armin to fuck these conspiracy theorists. I'm like, it's gonna take him to dinner, wine them, dine them, lay them down, just fuck him.
Okay, guys. Every country will have a not very clean record when it comes to foreign policy. Okay, and the more power that country has, the bigger their crimes are going to be. Okay, so United States being the world superpower, given that any country, again, I'm not excusing anything the United States does, okay, but you would expect to see higher costs from the mistakes by a superpower relative to smaller countries. Okay, but if I had to choose a superpower that is maintaining world order, okay, I would, with all the mistakes, with all the war crimes, with all the flaws that United States has, I would pick United States any day as a superpower that is leading the way to creating some form of stability over countries like China or Russia or anyone else. Okay, imagine if the Islamic Republic of Iran right now was the world superpower in charge of bringing peace to the world, and leading the way in that. What kind of a world we'd be leading? If I had to pick any country that right now, again, I'm telling you, any country that you put as a leader, because of any country that has the economy and the army to be able to be that superpower, relatively will cause a lot more damage whenever they make a mistake. Okay, because they're just a giant. Okay, in a room of ants. Every time they make a misstep, they're just gonna annihilate a whole bunch of ants, right? But if there's going to be a country that does that, it better be a country that is somewhat. I know it's not a priority. I know economy is number one issue always, okay? But it has to be a country that is somewhat influenced by Enlightenment values, okay? At least it's part of their narrative. I know it's not their priority one. I know it's not their priority two. I know it's not their priority three, but it's somewhere on their goddamn list. Okay? So you could say that, okay, United States claims to be a defender of human rights, claims to be a defender of democracy, claims to be a defender of secularism, blah, 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 but they're actually not. These are the other priorities that they have. But the difference is the other countries don't even claim it. They are aggressively opposing it. Okay? Even if it's just for PR purposes, even if you just think this is all just a show, they have to maintain the image to some extent, even if it's just because of maintaining some soft power. Okay, even if human rights, secularism, democracy is just beneficial to these countries because it gives them soft power as a way that they could leverage it against their competitor powers, the fact that they're using it as a tool gives us an advantage to use that as a way to pressure us collectively, as a way to pressure that, as a way for them to give in to that. There's a reason why these countries have managed to create a lot more autonomy to people, to a lot greater self-determination to the people, to their citizens than other countries, and have been able to provide a lot more stability and progress. Okay, because these values are on their list. Okay, maybe too far down on their list, but on the list, or else their citizens wouldn't be living such prosperous lives. Anyways.
Okay. Well, this is certainly not going to be the last time we talk about this, but for the moment, we'll probably talk about it even later in this stream. But for the moment, let's get into the rest of the other questions.
Yes.
So let's take another question from Secular Sakai. They're asking, Hinduism is the second largest religion in both, I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure how to pronounce this correctly, Suriname. I'm saying it like it's Japanese. Suriname and Guyana. How is the practice of Hinduism both similar and different to that of India in these South American countries?
I wouldn't know. Do you know?
No. To be honest, Secular Sakai, I feel bad because you asked very good questions, but I would not be able to tell you any better information than just what is on Google. So
we wouldn't. We're ignorant about this. Mm-hmm. So we wouldn't have.
First, I need to figure out how you even pronounce Suriname. It's funny.
But if we ever end up there, we'll make sure to head out to some temples and record it for you guys.
Yeah,
me and Susanna are planning on sometimes traveling to different countries and investigate their culture and religion, and just like, I don't know, maybe stream from different countries or record just our takes from different countries at some point and just release it here. So
Mhm.
something that one day we're gonna look forward to. So if we ever end up going there, we'll make sure to do that.
Yeah, I know, it's very interesting. I'd like to go to South America. So let's go to different patron question. Gasian American is asking, what are your thoughts on planned obsolescence? Is it good or bad? And if bad, how can people counteract it? So my understanding of planned obsolescence, or the definition of it, is basically when, like within a product, deterioration of that product is actually designed into it, so that you have to go out and buy another one. You're forced to, because your product is deteriorating, but it's basically a form of fraud.
Oh,
People in the live chat, correct me if I'm wrong about that understanding of it.
is it fraud?
I don't know if it's legally accounts to fraud, but I personally think it's fraudulent to sell someone on purpose a product that is going to break, and not just like normal wear and tear, but it's designed to break over time so that you have to go buy a new one. I think that's a fraud.
I haven't really thought that much about this. I just think like if it's this, you're asking for solutions, just customer reviews, I guess, right? Just like people.
Well, it's a lot harder than that. First, you have to prove that this actually is a thing. It's intentional, that there's the motivation to do it. You can't just say, "Oh, it's just breaking over time." I know that in
the solution is
America we actually
competition.
have laws against this, because planned obsolescence. I believe the laws in America started because there were light bulb companies that would conspire together to have light bulbs that break easily, so that you'd have to go and replace them and buy into it over and over again.
The solution is capitalism. Okay.
Well, no, there's actually regulations over these things, because it was capitalism that drove people to make products that would break.
The solution is more capitalism to fix it. Okay, because I think if the government's role is to break, like if companies that are supposed to be competing with each other come together and have an agreement that they're not going to compete with each other, that's illegal. Okay, that's against, what is that called? I think there's antitrust laws. Is that what it is? No, hold on.
I don't know the name of it, but it definitely exists.
Yeah.
The first thing I thought of was RICO, but that's for the mafia.
Yeah. Okay. So no, that's just
it is
merging.
antitrust.
Okay. So yeah, so if you come together and decide to like, hey, let's not compete with each other, let's do this and just work with each other, that should be legal, okay? Because if you just let these companies just compete with each other, then if somebody is making a product that doesn't last long, well, then another company will be like, hey, the best person to expose them is another company with a better product. They'll be like, look, their product lasts 1 year, ours lasts 10 years. So buy our product, not theirs. So the solution to the flaws of capitalism is more capitalism. The government roles has to just make sure that there's a high level of competition, and they're just not coming together and forming agreements that makes a competition, that reduces the competition. That's the role of the government here.
Yeah, I don't know how much incentive there is for companies to build products that you only have to buy into once every 10 years, though.
Well, another company that makes a better product will steal the market share from that company, from the one that is making a product like that.
Yeah, but they're only getting that initial buy-in once every 10 years, as opposed to every 2 or 3.
Well, they will have a bad reputation going forward once people realize that that's what's happening, and they would not buy it. Like another company would be the most motivated one to expose them for that.
I don't know, like, people know about Apple's like clear use of planned obsolescence, but Apple is still a giant. Like there's competition, but it's like not the same.
Okay. Well, I mean, if people be dumb, then I can't deal with that. If people are if you it can be like, hey, people smarten up. As the government, like, you could provide as much competition as possible, and then if people want to just go pay more money for like a product that is worth less, then that's like, we can't like fix stupid. Like, capitalism can fix many things, okay? It cannot fix stupid.
I say with my Apple phone.
No, okay, yeah, I'm very much against Apple.
Yeah, you actually hate Apple. That's hilarious. That's what's hilarious.
Yeah, paying higher prices for like a faulty product. Okay, that's on you. That's on the consumer. I don't know what else to do with that. Okay, here's the thing. No, wait. Somebody was okay. Yeah. How will you stop people from taking and talking to each other? Exactly. Well, Gage American, like, companies and investors are very risk averse. Okay, so as long as you make sure that there is a very high price to pay for it, and the risks of being caught is outweighs the potential benefits, right? Therefore, even if you don't get caught, the risk of getting caught will get priced into into your share values, and it will automatically disincentivize investors in companies who have practices like that, whether or not the laws get executed or not. So, because the pricing in a share is like, looks forward to potential things that could happen, not things that actually happen.
What does this mean? Susanna speaks very Galese.
Ghalese. Is that Persian?
What does that mean?
I don't know if that's Persian, because if it's Persian, it just means very thick.
Oh, okay.
But maybe it's not Persian. If it's Hindu, it means something else. But if it's Persian, it just means it's thick. I don't know why. What that means. Yeah.
Okay, I was like, I'm confused. Anyways, okay. So here is a question from Oxymoron. Should there be official Christmas and other Christian holidays in secular countries like the United States and France, considering similar privilege isn't offered to many other religions like Eid and Diwali? Should concept of Sunday holiday be imposed on non-Christian traditions? Isn't it a bit too authoritative to impose Gregorian calendar as official calendar in technological age, considering other religions have their own? Okay, so there's a lot of questions wrapped into this question, but first, I think we need to clarify some things about how holidays work in the United States. So, my understanding is that although we do have the holidays of the majoritarian religion, Christianity, already honored within vacation days for schools, state schools, government holidays, federal holidays, etc. And you don't automatically have days off for Diwali, for example. By law, you are entitled to have those days off and recognized by your employer and by the state. And if they don't, that's actually illegal. So it is unfair that people from minority religions have to kind of take an extra step to make sure that they can take the time off and have that be recognized. Whereas Christians, it's just already within their work calendar that will be taken off. But you can actually, that is, you're saying a similar privilege isn't offered to many other religions. That actually, it is honored and offered. Like, I had a Zoroastrian person I went to college with, and she got upset with her work because they didn't let her take time off to celebrate a holiday. And but then she talked to them and they're like, oh my God, we didn't realize, that's totally legal. I'm sorry. You can take this kind of time off now, blah, blah, blah.
That's so unfair. Okay, all of this is so more unfair to atheists rather than to religious people. Okay, so I could go be like, hey, my magic sky daddy told me that this day of the week I should be able to go, talk to my imaginary friends. So legally, you have to give me this time off. You have to you bend. A corporation has to, bend the knee to your sky daddy, recognize, the law is recognizing the authority of your superstition. And why can't we do that as atheists? right? I can be like, hey, the leprechaun in my underwear drawer told me that I need to be home on Mondays. Like, there's no law forcing the any company to be like, hey, that's his leprechaun. His leprechaun told him that, right? There's nobody's has to accept my excuse for why I want to be home on Mondays. So I think the solution should just be like just more flexibility for everybody rather than just be like, hey, Saturdays and Sundays. I just think like more flexible working hours for everybody. So everybody could just like, you can't just be like, hey, Christians have this, Muslims get this, Zoroastrians get this, I don't know, Hindus get that, atheists, you could go get fucked. But everybody else, like, because they just believe in magic, the law has to bend the knee. Like, if you're gonna do that, just make it so that everybody could be like, decide what are the 2 days that they want off. Like, just make it, don't make it based on religion, just make it based on personal choice. Some people could choose like Saturday and Sunday, some people be like, I want Saturday and Monday, right? Like, just make it, and just tell them that you can't keep changing it. Here's a new law, pick your 2 days and just be consistent with it for at least once every 6 months. Like, you can't be like, this week, like, if you think it's too costly for the companies, just be like, you can't just keep changing it every week. Okay, so make it secular, don't make it based on religion. Also, do you think like the other things that, I mean, we don't complain about, there are many things that, I don't know, are imposed. I mean, it's just the way that the world is running. Like, people don't complain about like, oh, why is Wednesday named out of Odin? Like, I don't believe in Odin. Like, I just think people just like think there are certain things that came from the past and they had a religious nature, and if they have lost their entire their religious reasoning behind them, then stop acting like religion is being imposed on you, right? Like, how many atheists, for example, are complaining about Christmas being imposed on them? Most of them just like celebrate it, right? Like, I see, Muslims might complain about Christmas being imposed on them, but atheists are not Christians. We don't complain that much about Christmas being imposed on us, right? I'll bet you, okay, if Islamic countries at some point become a lot more chill, okay, and their Eids become, capitalism takes us, does its magic on Islamic festivals to the point where secular people are celebrating it in the same way they celebrate Christmas. I bet you a lot of atheists in like Islamic countries 100 years from now would have no problem celebrating Islamic Eids as if it's just like a secular thing that you do because it's just a ritual thing. Like, I don't have to believe in Allah and Muhammad. It's just like, by the way, I don't think like Islamic Eids are as much as fun because capitalism hasn't done its magic on them as much as it has when it comes to, I don't know, Thanksgiving and Christmas or Halloween. But once it does, I think even Ashura will become festive and beautiful and fun if it becomes secularized.
I tell you, the Shias got their work cut out for them.
And yeah, through the magic of capitalism, I think even Ashura could be turned. I mean, if you look in Iran, they're turning Ashura ceremonies into rave parties, right? So it's already happening. I just think like 100 years from now, people would be going to Ashura because it's just too much, not because of Hussein or any crap like that. It's just because it's just too much fun, right? That's my prediction at some point.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question about like the Monday through Friday work week. Like, why should this be imposed on non-Christian traditions? There isn't really a good reason as to why, besides the fact that this is just the system that's been, or like which calendar do we use? It's really just about what has been adopted as an international norm. It just happens to come from one tradition or another. What's really interesting, for example, in the UAE recently moved to a Monday through Friday workday so that they can keep up with the business sector in other countries. And this has caused a huge controversy because people are like, I have to work on Friday now. And so that's been very interesting to observe. So a lot of countries just do it for the utility of being competitive. And they have to adopt certain norms of their competition. This also reminds me of, I had the most embarrassing conversation with Armin behind the scenes a few weeks ago about the Persian calendar.
Don't out yourself. Are you gonna tell them?
I don't even know how to explain it.
No, don't tell them. Don't tell them. Just kidding.
Needless to say, I was being a dumb fuck.
It's okay. It's okay.
And I'm just gonna leave it at that. But so funny.
All right.
I was like, wait a second. So you're in what year? I can't even explain it. Anyways, let's move to the next question. Next question is from Secular Sakai, who's asking, in 1967, Albania declared itself the world's first officially atheist nation. However, it brutally cracked down on religious people at this time with violent and horrific authoritarianism. Today, it is a secular democracy with a Muslim majority population that is considered mostly non-practicing and non-denominational. Why are religious sentiments so chilled there now, and how can more fundamentalist Islamic nations learn from Albania without emulating the religious persecution?
Albania. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Albania became Islamic under the Ottoman Empire, right? I just think like they have a much less history with Islam than many Islamic countries. So maybe like partly the reason why they're chill with their Islam there is because it's just not as deep rooted. And, I think like once you put your country into the Islamic soup and just keep like let it, cook in Islam for a while, it's just going to get deeper in, right? Like it's just going to it's going to fuse itself
really
inside.
Let it marinate.
Yeah, like once you marinate your country into Islam for like more than 1,000 years, I think like Islam will be a lot more deep rooted. Like it's closer to the core of your identity than when you're just there since like the Ottoman Empire. Like, okay, like are you really, how much experience do you have with Islam? I just think like there are a lot more alternatives. I mean, like for example, the Islamic Republic of Iran. I'm not sorry, Iran has been Islamic for like 1,400 years, right? So as much as a lot of Iranian nationalists want to deny that, it's part of like it's in your DNA of your country right now. Okay, it's part of the identities associated with the country. But I just think like if you have experimented with that a lot less, the amount of, even though the vast majority of people, not the vast majority, the majority of people are Muslim, there are so many other alternative ways of people defining who they are in Albania that could compete with their Muslim identity. So they might not take their Muslim identity as seriously relative to other countries, right? I think in Albania, it's mostly identities are based on ethnicity. Like I'm guessing, I might be completely wrong about
I have
that.
no idea. I only know where Albania is on a map. So
okay, so Albania in that look like had an easier time converting to Islam under the Ottoman Empire compared to other countries around that region because they were ethnically different from people around them. So I think like maybe the otherizing of them by everybody around them made it easier for them to just accept this alternative religion under the Ottoman Empire compared to the countries around them. That's why they were gave in to Islam. I mean, the Ottoman Empire kind of forced, like, actually, I don't know how much force was involved there. But okay, so I know this is gonna sound wrong to say, But again, I'm always going to say that Albania doesn't look Islamic. Okay, like I don't know. Every time I look at pictures of Albania, I'm like, is this an Islamic country? Like it doesn't look Islamic at all. But anyways,
Well, because to you, Islamic countries should be in sepia tone.
yeah,
They
you
should
told me
be
that.
bombed out and in the dirt and sand.
No, UAE looks. I mean, UAE has sand. Malaysia looks very Islamic. Malaysia looks Islamic, even though there's no sand, and it doesn't look like a war-torn country. Okay.
No, I'm just teasing you.
Yeah. Oh, Stony is Albanian, so maybe we should just ask Stony.
Yes.
Anyways, but we don't. This is my understanding. I just think like maybe the reason why Islam is not taken very seriously there is because of the fact that it's not a major part of their identity because they haven't been with it for that long, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think like the anti-religion being forced upon people there had a much like usually like this should not be used as an example like oh maybe like forcing atheism down upon people's throat, maybe that's the reason why we have so much progress in Albania, and maybe that's why they're not taking the religions very seriously. That's the wrong conclusion because usually that it doesn't work like that. Like we have way more examples of showing you how in history when you try to force secularize a population, they
Mm-hmm.
come back more religious. Okay, I don't think this is like Albania has a history of switching religions. Okay, like even when they were Christians, so they were Christians. Okay, Albania was a Christian country. Okay, but even when they were Christians, they were hopping between different sects of Christianity, like left and right, depending on who was in charge. Okay, so they were like just like, oh, who's in charge? Like, oh, we're Catholics. Oh, like, oh, now we're Eastern Orthodox. Oh, the Ottomans are here. Okay, now we're Muslim. Okay, so maybe they never committed to any of these for long enough to take any of them seriously. Maybe that's the reason why they're so chill about being Muslims right now. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Let's see what Stony in the light said.
Stony is saying Italians also helped secularize it to a good degree.
Mm-hmm.
When King Zog, what a name, King Zog.
Okay.
That sounds like the name of the bad guy in Toy Story.
Okay.
Is there everyone remember that? Sorry. When King Zog and Italian Monitor suggested giving women more rights, imams in larger cities rioted. Both Zog and the monitors had the imams shot. Oh, geez.
Oh no! Wow.
When the Turks
No.
colonized Albania, Orthodoxists fled to Greece and became Armenites. Catholics fled to Italy and became, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Arboresh.
Okay, so I didn't say Albanians are chill in every manner. I just said about Islam. By the way, just to warn you guys, there are many people who are trying to change that about how serious Islam is taken in Albania. Like there's I don't know, people I think like their investments in building like there's a huge issue with lack of mosques in Albania given the number of like I think the number of mosques per Muslims is like low, very low in Albania. I think maybe because Muslims don't take their religion very seriously in Albania. But there are people who are trying to go to Albania right now and build more mosques and also teach Islam and remind the Muslims in Albania that they're Muslims. Okay, so we have to maybe like we shouldn't be like we should like be careful. Like we could there's going to be a point like I mean having countries in Europe that are Muslim but also now more seriously Muslim would be a major win for the Islamic world. Okay, so they might like we have to keep an eye on Albania, make sure that like we cover that if people are pushing for that.
Wait, there was one thing I found interesting. A believer is asking, where is Albani from? Albani is from Albania.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Makes sense from the name. So I just find it really interesting that one of the most authoritative Hadith scholars, contemporary Hadith scholars, relatively contemporary, I think he's dead, is like Albanian. He's European. A lot of people don't know that. Anyways.
Here's another thing you want to read.
Oh my goodness, MEK is headquartered in Albania.
Yeah, they have camps there, I think. Then, and they torture like they have like they
Well, a lot of
mistreat
them
their
are
own members.
resettlement camps after they've been taken out of Iraq.
Yeah, exactly. They moved from Iraq. They were in France. Well, I mean, they were in Iraq. Then they were in France, and now they're headquartered in Albania. So
Whoa.
this is why I never visit Albania, because MEK. I've been very anti MEK, and MEK doesn't.
They don't mess around.
They will mess around. They will like execute. They will take you out if they. Yeah, they're terrorists. Yeah, but
We
they're
are
MEK camps. Okay, yeah, that's one.
down with MEK. Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you,
true.
Gossam. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyways, next live chat, not even live chat question, patron question. Is also from Oxymoron, asking regarding Muslim personal law in India. Do you think yet another cessation, despite partition, was possible without the involvement of lower caste Muslims, that the government had to succumb to the demands of Muslims? Doesn't this become a plot hole in the proposed caste theory of partition? Why is that majority of Muslims still vote for Muslims, especially Ashraf Muslims, if there was a class consciousness in lower caste Muslims?
Okay,
So,
before you read that question like this, like, because people are going to be like, what the hell is this question about? So I think we should like give a summary before we read the question, not after, but next time.
okay. Well, the context of this is that previously I've talked about how I've read some very interesting articles about the role of casteism in partition, particularly criticisms of the move of Jinnah and other organizations, Muslim organizations that were against partition, and why, and how they were more concerned about an identity of the oppressed on the basis of their caste than identifying with a religion, because they felt that they had more in common with the people from a similar lower caste status as opposed to their religion. I believe, correct me, Indians in the chat if I'm wrong, but the name for this is Bahujan, and referred to a more superordinate oppressed caste identity. So there's a saying like Bahujan first, Muslim second.
So let me actually simplify it a little bit. Tell me if you. So a lot of people, when they look at the partition of India and Pakistan, they look at this as a Muslim-Hindu divide. But what you are suggesting was a different kind of divide that a lot of people are unaware of, was upper caste Muslim and upper caste Hindu together, divided from lower caste Hindu and lower caste Muslim. So the divide between upper caste and lower caste, which a lot of people think was even more important, because the lower caste Muslims and lower caste Hindus have a lot more in common with each other than lower caste Muslims and upper caste Muslims, or lower caste Hindus and upper caste Muslims. Their experience was a lot more similar. So this divide of Hindu and Muslims ignores that. Okay, and this is very important within the context of the partition as well, because both the upper caste Hindus and upper caste Muslims were in favor of the partition, given that it would put them in a position of authority, like the people who were more educated and more in line, had access to power. They would also make sure that during the partition, their voices would heard more, compared to these lower castes who didn't have the access to make their voices heard and show their opposition to the partition. And the reason why the upper caste from both sides wasn't happy with the partition is because it will make them, as the people who are higher class, they would be in charge of Muslims, and the Hindu upper caste Muslims, it would be in charge of Hindus. So it would provide them with the authority that they want, right? So it was very much in their favor. However, the lower caste people, they were against this partition because they saw what was about to happen. They saw they were they would have benefited from a more united like Indian subcontinent, because a more secular one, whereas treating them like they would see themselves like the lower caste Muslims, they would see themselves as more oppressed under a fully Islamic Pakistan, or Hindu lower caste would see themselves more oppressed under a fully Hindu India, and also they would be worried about not being able to migrate, like a lot of lower castes Hindus and Muslims were left behind and had to pay the price for it. So this whole form of, that's why they were maybe they were ignored, right? Like they're completely ignored, and their voices were not heard. And so this is what oxymoron is. This theory is what oxymoron is challenging. And what is his challenge exactly?
Basically about inconsistencies with this narrative, and if this is the case, why do they still vote along religious lines today? If this is supposedly about a caste consciousness, and Rudresh is giving me the other word I was looking for, which is pashmanda. Thank you. I was trying to remember that. So, well, let me just say something. When I talk about this aspect of it, and when I just talk about India, I'm not claiming to be an expert at all. When I talk about this, I'm not even necessarily saying, or if I have said this in the past, I was incorrect. And what I'm saying now is that I'm not saying that this is the reason why partition happened. I'm not saying that this is one of the main reasons why it happened the way it did, or that this is essentially a reflection of the attitudes today. When I talk about these things, it's more like, this is an interesting perspective I heard. I hadn't considered this before, and I want to share it with my audience, like this thing that I learned, because it's just interesting to consider. So I'm not necessarily making a claim. I'm just sharing some more information that I garnered. Because if there is one thing that I know about India, is that, there's a saying. I don't know if you guys have heard it before, but it's a joke saying. It's like, oh, if you get two Jews in a room together, you'll have three opinions. Well, if the one thing I know about India is that if you are,
and that's a good thing, by the way, that's a compliment.
If there's one thing I know about India, and with like one issue, there's like 23 different aspects that you need to look at it by. So I wouldn't be so simplistic as to say that this is the reason, or this is what the main thing that we need to be considering or looking, the lens we need to be looking at partition through. I just think it's one aspect of it to consider. There's probably, again, 22 other ways that is at minimum that you need to look at any other given issue happening in the country, because there are so many different like civilizational identities, like subcontinent, the differences of language, of caste, of background, it's just so immense, the different sections of all these. So yeah.
Okay, so I want to push back against this pushback, though, because again, I don't know if this is true, but it's also possible that the Muslim versus Hindu, it's not, it's more than possible. I think I'm very certain about this. Okay. The Muslim Hindu divide has become a lot more defined ever since the partition, right? So what we have today is not the same as what the things were at that time. So you're talking about even today, Muslims are vote for Muslims. Okay. Well, why are you not talking also about the fact that Hindutva also just like, it's so telling that you're just highlighting the fact that Muslims vote for Muslims and not highlighting that Hindus never vote for Muslims. Like, well, not never, but like you're only highlighting one side of this, right? So it's also true from the other side, right? They would never, right? Well, not never. Yeah, I don't want to be an absolutist, but
Why
I'm just saying, like,
these absolutist.
I just said every time I notice when I'm doing it. Like, how come you're not noticing that I notice that I'm doing that every time I do it? Okay. Yeah, I'm really good at catching it when I do. So praise that part instead of like, yeah. No, but what
You
I'm
right.
saying is that, yeah, what I'm saying is that you're judging our take on what was the situation at the time of the partition. You're judging it based on what the attitudes are today, even though the level of the Hindu Muslim hostility in the Indian subcontinent, both in India and in Pakistan, has changed the battle lines significantly. Again, I'm not suggesting, like, I'm not, like, oh, Armin, this is not a new thing. Hindus and Muslims have been challenging each other for a long time. I know. I'm just comparing it relative to the time of the partition. I'm not saying, like, if you look at the history of Islam in the Indian subcontinent, it was a lot worse at some certain time. We have like the Hindu Kush Mountains. They're named the Hindu Kush Mountains for a reason. Okay, I'm not saying we're living at the worst of times when it comes to the struggle between Hindus and Muslims. But I'm just saying, you cannot tell me that you're judging what the attitudes were at the time of the partition, or even immediately after. Like, it's not. We're talking about when the decisions about the partitions were being made. But even immediately after the partition, the Hindu versus Muslim divide became a lot greater. Like, there was a lot of killings. Like, how many people died because, like, through the attack, the Hindu and Muslim attacks? Attitudes significantly change because of the impact that this had on people's perceptions and their lives, right? So yeah, we're talking right before, like, we're talking about the attitudes of people right before. So it's not fair for you to judge it based on what things are like today. Does that make sense what I said? Is that clear what I was trying to say?
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I think I maybe can disagree a little bit, but the oxymoron saying it's not a good thing to have tolerance towards multiple bad opinions. That's why Hinduism sucks.
Hey, actually, wait, isn't the oxymoron that is? Are you joking or are you serious? Because I agree with that. Is
Yeah,
that
this
like
is
a
one thing we can
sarcastic?
agree on.
Yeah.
I think this is in reaction to uh into me saying when you're looking at issues, there are so many different angles that you need to look at it. I'm not saying that these are opinions and that we tolerate good or bad opinions. I'm saying that many different aspects of social life and in historical context that affect what we see today, that you need to consider. It's never super clear. Not that we
Okay.
tolerate. Yeah, never mind.
Look how good I am at predicting people's misunderstanding of what I'm saying and responding to it before it happens. Okay. Because I don't know why Oxymoron posted this after I already said it. Okay. So, like, I actually, maybe you're not saying that. Okay. That oxymoron posted, Hindu Muslim conflict always existed. In fact, some content is now far better than ever. I am just against too drastic whitewashing. I predicted people not understanding what I'm saying, and I already responded to this before the criticism came after me. I specifically said I know that the history of the Hindu Muslim conflict throughout history has been a lot worse. Like, the Hindu Kush mountains are named Hindu Kush. Kush means killing. Okay, Hindu Kush are named after, like, they killed so many Hindus. Muslims killed so many Hindus that they named the mountains after. They called it the place where you kill Hindus. That's how bad the situation. Like, the number one victims of Islam, after Muslims themselves, are Hindus. Like, they're not Westerners, they're not Christians, they're not atheists. Hindus throughout history paid a lot heavier price in blood for Muslim Islamic aggression than any other group of people in the world. I know that. Obviously, what we're experiencing today is nothing close to that. I wasn't suggesting that. Okay, I wasn't suggesting that. I also didn't suggest that before the partition there was no Muslim Hindu conflict. Obviously, there was. Okay, but you cannot tell me that the past couple of years, the experience people they had with the partition and the mass killings that came after it, and the politics that we have had ever since, and also now with the rise of the BJP and Hindutva, you cannot tell me that in recent history that has not uh, poured gasoline on the fire of Hindu Muslim conflict. You cannot tell me that hasn't had an effect. that things haven't gotten worse.
So Oxymoron also asked another patron question, but it was more of again like a contention and less of just like a question. So I'm gonna pass that one up. If you rephrase it, maybe in a more concise way, like we can address that next week. Last patron question is from Asian American, saying the United States Great Compromise allots 2 senators per state to help prevent the tyranny of the big states over small states. Should the system be adopted by other nations, 2 senators per ethnic group? Would either of you vote in favor of a national referenda of 2 senators per indigenous nation in your respective federal legislators? Which would be 1,148 senators for America and 1,260 senators for Canada. Well, I don't like this shift towards ethnic federalism.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Good point. Really good. But not only do I not favor doing the 2 Senate per state in other places, I'm in favor of abolishing the Senate, which I know it's not going to happen. But I'm in favor of. This is completely undemocratic. Why should every state have 2 senators that represent them? Why would a state that has much less population all of a sudden have a relatively louder voice per person than a state with much higher population? This is completely undemocratic. Like, well, yeah, but every state. Why should every state have 2 senators? You have less people. You should have less of a say. Like, it should be based on the number of people that are in favor of policies, not based on the number of states. What states are not people? Why are we deciding that this geographic area, regardless of how many people live in it, have the same amount of say in the entire country's politics? Well, at least when it comes to the Senate, I know the Congress is different. Like, it's completely undemocratic. It should be abolished. It should completely be abolished. Like 2 senators or 2 in charge actually gives a second opinion. Guys, this is completely moronic, okay? If I have a country with 2 states, okay, and one of them has a population of 1 million and the other one has a population of 10, okay, all of a sudden having a Senate with 2 senators per state. I know I'm exaggerating, but I'm just trying to make a point. Okay, you have 2 senators that have basically give the 1 million, the state with 1 million population, the same amount of say in the Senate than the other Senate with the other state with only 10 people in it. Like, it's completely moronic. It's idiotic. It shouldn't. I know like why the founding fathers had to do it, because at the point of the foundation, I guess like these different states felt intimidated and just want to make sure that they, when you're starting a country, you wanted to market the idea of like, hey, just be a United States rather than like being all separate like entities. So you had to like, provide some incentives, right, for everybody to get in on all this like union thing, right? So, but now at this point where we're like in favor of democracy and we're in favor of people having a say based on the fact that people are saying it, not because like, oh, like we live over here, right? Because of it's people's vote. Democracy means like the more people are in favor of something, that's what happens. Okay, and that's why we don't believe in pure democracy. There are certain things that shouldn't be up for a vote, right? But other than those few other things, everything else should be based on majority vote, not based on I'm voting within these geographical lines and you're voting on those geographical lines, and I have more power relative to you because my state has less people. I have more power. I imagine an American, okay? So Susanna is in California, okay? Tell me a state in your country that has like very low population, like
South Dakota.
South Dakota, okay? The political power of somebody who lives in South Dakota is higher than Susanna's, okay? Because somebody who lives in South Dakota they have the same number of they have a higher senator per population ratio than Susanna. So they have more of a say. Americans in South Dakota have more of a say because of the lower population of their state. They have more of a say on the policy of their countries than people that live in California or in New York. What kind of democracy is that? It's completely moronic.
Oh my God. Oh, Mustafa's making a very good point. It further undermines the people who live in territories. Why does Wyoming, a state of 300,000, have more representation of Puerto Rico, a territory with millions? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have anything else you want to add for that question?
No, I'm glad people agree, by the way.
Yeah, no, I thought it was very interesting the way the Asian American asked this question, because I was expecting the question to go in the direction of, would you want to get rid of the Senate because of these reasons? Not let's like triple down on the Senate structure. I was like, no, let's go the opposite.
Yeah, go opposite.
Okay, so that was the end of the patron. Wait, in fact, let me check the patron page just because sometimes people ask questions late. And this week there weren't any questions from Music Guy, and
oh my God, our last art is really juicy, by the way, literally.
Oh, you're just looking at that now?
Yeah, I was looking at patron questions and I scrolled down a little bit. Guys, our blasphemous art is very, very juicy. So make sure you're a Patreon so you can get we can't show it to you here because it has a lot of nudity. So, but make sure you're if you're a patron, make sure you take advantage of that.
Oh, okay. You actually like that one? That's good.
Yeah,
sometimes
I like it. I like it
about the kind that you like or that we like.
No, I like it when it gets I can't explain why.
Yeah, we can't talk about that. So that's the end of the patron questions. If you guys want your questions to be guaranteed to be answered, as long as they're concise and answered first, then please become a patron and you can get all these perks for as little as $1 a month. So link in the description below. Before we get into the live chat questions, feel free to ask your questions now, but Secular Sakai gave us a manual super chat by donating to our GoFundMe, since we've been demonetized on YouTube for exactly a year now. So thank you for the $15 super chat and saying long live the Republic, and even did our logo and emojis. That's so cute.
That is so cute. I've never seen anyone do that. That's the first.
I know. I was like, how is this the first time I'm seeing this?
Yeah, that's
why did
amazing.
I not think of this?
That is adorable. Thank you.
Oh, this is actually a very sweet comment from Rudresh. Susanna knows way too much on issues she covers. I'm surprised she can get things on India right. Even Indian gets things wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I don't pretend to be an expert by any means. I just try to approach, especially India. I try to approach it just with curiosity and good faith.
Yeah.
But I appreciate
more than most people,
because oftentimes during the Q&As I'm like,
Susanna should just own up to the fact that she knows more than most people. She keeps saying she's not an expert. Nobody's saying you're an expert. You just know more than most people. Okay.
Okay. Oh, great juicy question from Rudresh. Why is Putin so popular among right-wingers worldwide? People call him the Tsar like it's a good thing.
Yeah, because a lot of right-wingers have this inferiority complex, and they try to make up for it with this fake image of strength, manhood, and toughness, and they feel threatened because things are changing in the world and it's changing too fast for their taste, and they feel like they're losing the place in the world. And this whole doubling down on this identity of being a tough guy and everything else being weak and pathetic, and everything else being, I don't know, too feminized and too they try to portray, because they are, extremely weak and a dying breed, they try to act like everything else is weak and they're the tough ones, right? And then when they see, and Putin represents them so perfectly, because Putin is very weak, but he looks and acts like he's very tough and very strong. Okay, like, guys, Russia's entire economy is less than Italy. Okay, I mean, that was before the market crash. Right now it's probably, I don't know, even worse than that. But anyways, and Russia is losing at every front. But if you look at Putin, and if you look at the way that the level of aggression, they act like they're still a superpower. Okay, you're not a superpower. Stop acting like you're a superpower. Okay, you're pathetically weak. Okay, and you need to be put in your place. So actually, it's very, they see themselves in him, right? They see a much stronger version of themselves in him. Putin is noticing that they're being made to, from on a world stage, they're becoming less and less relevant and he hates the fact that they used to be a superpower and they're not anymore. So he just tries to act tough and to regain that position. And all these right wingers, especially like, they noticing whether they're like, I don't know, white ethno nationalists or Hindu nationalists, they feel threatened by modernity, and they're feeling threatened by the fact that their ideas, their conservative viewpoints, and their values doesn't have the same place in the world as it used to have, and they think like they're being replaced. And they want to act tough and strong and act like it's very interesting, because at the same time they claim that everybody is weak and pathetic, and at the same time they're talking about them, all these weak and pathetic and feminine and, I don't know, woke world is very successful at completely pushing them aside. So which one is it? Are they strong and successful at like removing your way of life and your way of thinking, or are they weak and pathetic and can't get anything done? Because you can't have both. Okay, so again, so this is their man. This is like their main go-to. And by the way, it's not just right wing. I mean, right winger, far right people and far left people, like tankies, for example, become so hard to tell apart at some point, because I think they deal with the same level of insecurities. So that's why they both have this desire to just celebrate strong men, okay, who's gonna come. They're both anti-modernity, anti-democratic, and they both believe in the power of forcing their way upon people who don't know better, right? So when they see a strong man that comes and forces their way against the wishes of all these people who are just getting everything wrong, they celebrate that, because they want the world to just like, they think like, this is not our home anymore. The world doesn't recognize how things should be, so we should just force them to be that way. So that's why they are so in love with strongmen.
I think it's also partially because there have been studies on how people who are orient towards the right wing, orient towards conservatism, are reactive to are prone to fear-based emotions. And so if you are someone who is prone to fear-based reactions, you're going to look towards authority to help protect you, help provide stability and predictability within your environment in your life. And so this is why there's just this bent towards authoritarianism, or one theory behind this. And given that there's kind of this temperamental disposition, I think this is partially why you see so many similarities across different right wing groups, and why they have an affinity for each other so much, even when you would think that their interests are in opposition to each other on a certain psychological level. They still like admire that strongmanism, even if they're supposed to be enemies. But this comment from Mustafa made me crack up, when you ride a horse shirtless, you're officially a man to some of these right wingers' homoerotic sensitive eyes.
How desperate, by the way, is that? How desperate? Like how weak and
I love
pathetic
it.
they're like.
It's so funny.
I am so mad. Look at me, like, oh, look at me finding these historical artifacts. Just happen to be here. Look at me on a horse. Like it, like the more manly, like these so-called alpha males try to pretend that they are, like the more pathetic and weak they look. There's nothing less alpha than you trying to be alpha. Okay? Like it's like you're just projecting weakness and insecurity. Like that's what it looks like. It's so weak and pathetic. And you know what? Like strongmen, you just need, it's not your time anymore. All of you, you need to be replaced. Your time is gone. The age of empires, the age of dictators and tyrants, it's over. Okay, you guys need to be eliminated. Okay, and
Well, it should be over. We
you,
have seen a
yeah,
startling rise in authoritarianism over the past 5 to 10
I
years.
know, and but that's why the people like Putin need to be made an example of. Like they need to be made. They need to be humiliated. I want Putin to live long enough to see that how big of a mistake everything he did was. I want him to become a pariah. I want the world to look at how big of a, like this man that was supposed to be a strategic mastermind. I want him to see what he did to Russia, and I want the world to recognize that actions like this have consequences.
I love the photos where they Photoshop Putin to be riding a bear. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah.
So this is a quick question from Stony Lonesome. Questions for both Armin and Susanna. What were your guys' first cars and what are your dream cars? Well, I have never owned my own car, so I've never bought a car. But the car I learned how to drive in was a Volvo. Trusty little Volvo. And when I was growing up, when I was a kid, my dream car was to get a Volkswagen Beetle and then paint it to look like a panda, because pandas are my favorite animals. So as a kid, I would build models of this car, but to like a panda car. And nowadays, if I wanted a car, I have no idea what I would get. Yeah, I don't know. I don't care. I don't really want a car. It's
I already had
financial liability where I live.
I already had my dream car, and I'm over it now. So my first car was an Opel, and then, do you hear my dog? Sorry about that. Do you hear her? Pucci?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry. Okay, my dream car was like, I mean, it's not very something very. I had a Mini Cooper, okay, and I
wanted
loved
a
it.
Mini Cooper.
I had a sports Mini Cooper. I paid $58,000 for that, right? And I like the fact that I never had parking problems. Like it was so easy; it would just fit everywhere in traffic. I could just like get myself out of like crazy situations very easily. It's just so easy to. It was really cool. It looked really nice. It was beautiful. It was a comfortable, and I loved it. Okay, so and it looks beautiful, and I just love driving that car. Um, but like but I just think like a car doesn't make any sense. Okay, so my dream car now is like not ever needing a car. Okay, if I had to have cars anymore, I would like just pick based on the one that has the lowest maintenance. Like that was insane to buy a car for 58,000. Like I was like during a time in my life where I didn't know how to be financially responsible and stuff like that. So I would never make mistakes like that ever again. But like just think like I like not having to drive, right? I like you know, but if I have to get cars, I would get cars that are not so overpriced, like gets me from A to B, and it's easy to maintain, it's easy to get like easy to get parts for, like really effective when it comes to energy usage, right? Very, low maintenance. Like I don't know, like if you look at like all these modern cars, they all look very good. Like they all do everything you need and more than, like, actually, like good cars, cars that are very expensive, they're actually inferior to cars that are cheap right now, right? Like if you get like a luxury car, they can't do the things that cheaper cars do because they're like very tailored and handmade. They're not comfortable. They don't all have all the techie stuff that like cheaper car have. Like, I don't know, like, have you been in a Lambo? Okay, they're not comfortable. These are not cars that are fun. Okay, if you're in a Toyota, okay, with all the, like, the chairs are more comfortable. They have a lot of like the technology around it. It makes it so easy to see the back and the corners, the air conditioning, the computerized system in it. You know, everything about it is just it's easier to drive. I mean, than these higher end cars. Like, I don't see why would you pay. So it's basically the same thing as an iPhone, right? Like you're paying so much more for a much less comfortable experience because of the status that it gives you, right? So I prefer not having a car. Okay, I very much enjoy just getting Ubers everywhere I need to go. Like it's actually a lot less costly. I have my own driver when I have to go to places, and I get to just like look at my phone and listen to consume my content when I'm driving. Like I have my own driver whenever I go, and the cost of Ubering around is a lot less than buying a car, maintaining insurance, and paying for all the maintenance fees and like the repair and everything. It's a lot more superior. But I think, like, I don't know, at some point if you have kids you might need a car. If I do at that point get a car, it would be like something very easy to maintain, like a Toyota or something like that. I don't know what's car.
This is some dark humor from Wasim. Saying, I love the blue Nissan. It was the slayer of Fakhrizadeh.
Okay. I didn't get that at the beginning. Okay, now okay. Good one.
This is some niche Iranian humor.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mossad.
Thanks, Musad. Yes.
Thank you, Mossad. So, okay. Next question.
Maybe I should get my dog to come here because she's like lonely. She's
I
crying.
would love to see Poochie.
Okay, I'll bring her.
Okay. In meanwhile, Music Guy is saying that I should become a TikToker. Well, I wonder what that's about. I'm gonna be honest. I've tried to do the reels on Instagram, and I like literally can't figure out how anything works. I feel like a boomer all of a sudden, and I feel like I would be too embarrassed. I'd be way too embarrassed to like do any of the trends or try to do the dancing and stuff. I'd be cripplingly self-conscious. So I don't think I could be a TikToker. Oh, look at that baby. She's happy now. So next question is from Mustafa. What do you guys think about the meme culture that is now surrounding the Russian-Ukraine war? Is it inappropriate? Is it informative? I think it's kind of off-putting. Unfortunately, in our day and age, I think meme culture to literally any given event is just what's going to happen. Personally, I've been finding it, for the most part, really off-putting. Especially because, I mean, there's been a few memes where it's mainly about people's reaction to this whole situation that I find really funny, because it's just more like social commentary. But in general, I just think it's stupid, and people need to figure out how to have like better. I don't know if I want to say that. Like,
I'm in favor of it.
a lot. I mean, just make better memes. Damn.
I'm in favor of it because whatever it takes to get Generation Z more interested in international politics, it doesn't have to be the right way. I mean, they will grow eventually to. I mean, as it is, we don't have enough people just paying attention to like anything international politics related, right? So if it's between takes that we find cringe, then no takes at all. I prefer takes that are cringe because there's some level of awareness. I mean, if it's like, if you could just make it cool just to be like aware about things that are happening beyond your borders, even it doesn't have to be the right thing. I just appreciate the fact that there exists an acknowledgement of like, oh yeah, things are happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I take it. I'm not going to be picky about how that happens.
Oh my gosh, Asian American is saying, Susanna, have you seen the Ukraine meme put out by the Ukrainian government? The Ukrainian government has been actually putting out some pretty banger memes for a couple months now.
Yeah.
I remember they put out this meme where it's the chart of the types of different type of headaches, where it's like, have a headache here, and they have the headache here, and then the full face, it was just living next to Russia.
Yeah.
I was like, that was a good one. But it makes me have like kind of a Black Mirror moment where I'm like, we have world powers making memes about this kind of stuff. I don't know. It's very uncanny in a way. Yeah. I've been seeing a lot of people translating different really cringy messages to Putin into doing Google Translate and then DMing him their messages to stop invading. So that's ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. And a lot of times I saw this one thing on Twitter that I kind of agreed with, where I was like, it was a caption and it said, I use humor to cope with the Russia-Ukraine situation. And then it was just a photo of like your standard American suburban cul-de-sac, to comment like, you literally live in like a suburban cul-de-sac. Like what do you mean to cope with it? Like, you're safe, you're fine, and this is how you're treating the situation. That's how it's perceived to a lot of people.
I'm just gonna be like, I'm just like not that picky. I'm just happy to see people talking about international politics. Like maybe my standards are a bit lower because I've been having my experience with people in this one reason why I stream is because I talk to people who are talking about the things that we're interested in. Like I escape my environment a lot because in my environment, people don't seem to ever be that interested in things that I'm interested in. Like this is why I like streaming so much, right? So if I see any form of like interest, like in anything remotely close to, I don't know, philosophy, science, international politics, I don't know, religion, and I just be like, I'm just so grateful that I don't know what you're saying. I don't care I'm just so grateful to see that, especially in like Generation Z, if they grew up to be like, to care about these things, I'm just like, I'm not going to be picky. Like, for example, sometimes like I see some people in my immediate family that I didn't expect, like, for example, for them to be interested in stuff like this, to all of a sudden share a post about it. And for some reason, I'm like, oh, that's so nice. Right? I don't know what, because my expectations are so low. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh, your take is wrong about, like, okay, so like in live chat, when I see people in live chat, when they have stupid takes, I comment them down on them like really hard. Okay. But in the world where people are not talking about this, every time they have any opinion of this, I like, you might think in the real life, like in the offline world, you might think I'm a person to jump on them and be like, no, you're wrong about this and this and this. Like, no, like in the offline world, I'm just like, wow, you're actually interested. So that's pretty neat. Even with religion, right? Like, for example, when people have like really crappy takes in the real world and they're like philosophizing for why, like, I don't know what their views are about this religion, like the mere fact that they're trying to go through the process of coming up with a logic for why they believe in the things that they believe in, to me, that's impressive, even though if they believe in some form of nonsense. I think that's already above average, that you're trying to justify what you believe in, even if you end up believing in nonsense. Yeah.
Oh, I've had some dumb ass conversations on dates along those lines. Oh my god.
I bet.
Nihilist Antinatalist is asking, what are your thoughts on the Daniel Hakikaju versus the white nationalist debate? Did you
Haven't watched it yet. Yeah, not yet.
I haven't
Will
watched
watch
it yet either.
I mean, I am scared of watching that because that sounds like a debate that I might be like taking Daniel's side on that. I'm like, damn it, I'm gonna be like review it, like I'm gonna defend Daniel against this guy. I don't know. Like, I think
Well, it's a
I think
lose-lose situation because what if the other guy's just dunking on Daniel, and then you have to be like, well, I agree with this guy.
I haven't watched it yet, but I think Daniel would be making stronger points than that guy. I think that guy is going to talk. Yeah, I think like Daniel's going to win that debate. I mean, white nationalists, man, they're not very bright. Okay, at least when it comes to debaters, at least Muslims have like ways to make what they're claiming look intelligent, even if it isn't. But what do you have for white nationalism? You don't have anything, right? It's just you're just
Can you
dumb.
move your mic a little closer to your mouth?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Thanks.
I'm just saying. Did you understand what I said?
No, I heard you. It just yeah.
Oh, do you think they agreed on almost everything? 99%. Oh my. Okay, I have to watch this.
Wait.
that is very telling. You're like, yeah, we have to defend our people against modernity. Like, yeah.
Oh wait,
Okay.
that's gonna
Wait,
be
if
good.
that is, oh my god, that would be very telling if they agreed on a lot of things. Okay.
It really is like, yeah, a horseshoe. Rajesh is asking, why is heavy metal genre more popular in developed countries? Can popularity of metal be an indirect measure of enlightenment in a community? This is a tough question. My initial thought, it's just off the top of my head, is that it might be a indirect measure of enlightenment in a community in the sense that in many other countries, this form of music and artistry is extremely stigmatized and even criminalized. So there was this metal band from Iran. I think their name is Confession. And they were actually sentenced to jail and had to escape the country because, their music was so blasphemous and stuff. So that's one aspect of it. Another aspect of it might be in less developed countries. Of course, people have music and they have artistry, but on average, I'm willing to bet that there's less time or availability that people have to dedicate to their artistry. And also, a lot of, I'm specifically thinking about like Norwegian, like black metal. A lot of that literally came out of these angry young men being upset that their culture and country was like too happy. Like if you go look at it, that's literally kind of some of the genesis. So I think so in that sense, yes. But
yeah, actually, I thought there was no relationship, but based on what you're saying, it does seem to be. And also, metal is like a form of protest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Metal is a form of like saying no to.
It's inherently
control.
countercultural. It was supposed to be countercultural.
Yeah, I thought I honestly I just changed my mind right now on air. Okay, so I think the more free a country is, the more enlightened it is, the more a culture of protest it will have. And given that metal plays into the whole value system of like saying no to undeserved authority, I think like when people have a background of valuing that, have a history of value, have like normalized that as a value, you're going to see more popularity among.
Yeah, or tolerates the public display of that. There's a lot of countries that wouldn't even tolerate.
No, but I think Ridrish is more talking about not whether it's allowed or not, but why would people celebrate it more, right? I just think like there's more.
Young people are angry and confused, and they want to find a way to express it.
Yeah, I think like there's a higher level of acceptability in more enlightened countries, there's more room for people, even though the people who are angry feel like they're being suffocating. They're not suffocating to the point where they can't voice their frustration in forms, in bare metal and other forms, right? So given that that level of breathing room is allowed, it's going to express itself in many ways, including metal. So I think like having some level of enlightenment and allowing that will results to cultural behaviors like this, right? And I think like if the acceptability of rebellion is even less than what you're seeing in these countries, then that room, that is because it's not seen as much of a value, maybe there's less acceptance by society. I mean, even in countries where like rebellion is seen as a value against the regime, for example, like in Iran, rebellion on its own is not yet turned into a value, right? It's only against the regime because it's pure evil that it's being celebrated. You know what I mean? But the rebellion, like protesting, like I don't know, against your parents or against your school teachers or against all forms of authority, that is not still seen as a value of its own. Like because of it being a protest. You know what I mean? Like just demanding your rights or demanding what you deserve and demanding change, and just that by its very nature being seen as value is still not deep rooted, even in countries like Iran, where rebellion against the government is seen as a value, right? It's just so it needs a longer history. Even Iran has a better history compared to other countries around there, because since the constitutional revolution around which is at the beginning of the 20th century. So Iran does have an experience with rebellion and protest, but I still think like ever since the Protestant Revolution, the culture of protesting has become a much bigger part of Western European and North American culture compared to the rest of the world, right? Like it's a value of its own, which eventually turned. By the way, that was something that Martin Luther himself was against. Like, we shouldn't give credit to Christianity or even Martin Luther for that. Martin Luther was like against all these protests. He was like, I was talking about changing Christianity for your life, for you to be equal to the kings in the next life. In this life, you should know your place, right? In this, like, he was asking for the kings to everybody to basically completely eliminate or like completely suppress the protests. Like, he was very much against the protests, which is amazing how Martin Luther, who is like responsible for the Protestant religion, was against all the protests. Like, it's like, okay, in the next life, you're going to be this, we're all going to be equal in the eyes of Jesus. In this life, this be the king, you be the peasant. Okay, so that was the understanding. So I just want to make sure that just because I'm giving credit to the Protestant Revolution for instilling this culture of protest in Western Europe and North America, I'm not giving credit to Christianity or Martin Luther for any of that. But yeah.
I love how everyone in the live chat is bonding over metal. Brother Ben is saying, at ungrateful bastards, don't forget to like the stream. Yes. Yes, guys, please like the stream. It helps us grow the channel. It really, really does. So thank you for that. Thank you for reminding everyone. Yeah. Tagging all ungrateful bastards.
That's a good one. We should swear more at our live chat. I think that makes them like the channel.
I don't know how I feel about that. I'm too sensitive for that. Armin Saidi is asking, I have a question, Armin. Are Muslim Iranians who live in the West fundamentalists and extremists, or liberal, generally speaking?
Well, generally, we shouldn't be generally speaking, right? So, I don't want to generalize. Muslim Iranians, okay? But we can talk statistically. They seem to be a lot more liberal, but that is very skewed because why have they left? Like a lot of people, again, not all. Okay, there are fundamentalists who leave Iran, but a lot of the people who are motivated to leave Iran are motivated to leave Iran because not because of them not being happy
Hmm.
with living under very strict Islamic conditions, right? So also, so there are many, like, recently this has been changing. Okay, recently a lot of fundamentalists, because of the access to a lot of the wealth that they have had, they can they get to leave Iran as well, right? But and also, like, if you look at a lot of people in the regime, their kids like study in Western countries, right? So and they live outside of the United States, but outside of Iran, but those are a minority. But if you look at what's happening, like in the past 40 years, most in the past 43 years, a lot of mostly the people who left Iran are the people who are not okay with the Islamic Republic of Iran, and also they are the people who have the means to be able to leave the Islamic Republic of Iran, right? So those two elements, by its very nature, is going to filter out a lot of conservatives, and it's going to skew the results in favor of people who are more liberal, okay? Because if you most upper class, like not most, like upper class people, you're going to see a lot more liberalism among upper class people, relatively to upper class people in Iran, relative to, we talk India so much. I say upper class. The upper class people in Iran relatively are a lot more liberal to the lower class people, right? And also, yeah, so those two elements, the fact that they're leaving Iran makes them more likely to be liberal, and the fact that they have the means to leave Iran also makes them upper class, which makes them, again, more likely to be liberal. But again, not all. I know there's a lot of very, very conservative Iranian Muslims outside of Iran. Like, for example, Daniel Hayagaju.
Hmm. I This is anecdotal experience, but out of all of the Iranians I've met, either first generation or second generation immigrants, I've only met one that was actually a practicing Muslim, and they seem to come from a very liberal family. The rest of them, I'm like, oh, what's your opinion on this? They're like, oh, hell no. Like, very bold. Some of the boldest anti-Islamic people I have ever met. So,
Right. And they're not just not okay. So you're talking about Muslim Iranians, okay? Because you're not talking about a huge group of Iranians who are not Muslim, okay? So there's three groups of people, okay? We have Iranians outside of Iran. There's a lot of them who are Muslims, nominal Muslims, who are like liberal. There are a lower number of them who are much lower number of them who are conservative Muslims. But there's also a huge group of Iranians outside of Iran that are not Muslim. Not only they're not Muslim, they've left Islam. They're more aggressively anti-Islam than any group of people I've ever met in my entire life.
straight up.
Sometimes go beyond just being anti-Islam and be anti-Muslim, like to very aggressive ways, right? So,
You missed a group.
What group?
The group would be Iranians that left for they were never Muslims. They were from religious minorities. Like, I know Iranian Jews. I know
Right.
Zoroastrians,
Right.
Baha'is.
Okay, there's also like a handful. Okay, this is very tiny. I don't want to highlight these people as if they're like a big deal, okay? But I've noticed very few, okay? Like, I don't know if there's more than 10 of them, okay? Okay? But there's also a bunch of Iranians who noticed the privileges of being Muslim among woke people. Okay? So
Oh, I know who you're talking
they
about.
came, even though they living in United States, coming from a parent family that is not Islamic in any shape or form, they were like, there's privilege points here. Like, I like them noticing. They're like, I could grow a beard and I could act like I could like Like I'm not like I could lean into this Muslim identity, and these leftist cultures, this leftist group, will all of a sudden take me more seriously just because they want to be more diversified and they want to be more exotic, or like, oh look, we have this, I don't know, we have a trans person, we have a gay people, and we have our own Muslim. Okay, so we have a Muslim here too. So like maybe if I grow a beard and start using Islamic words just in the middle of bottom, like if I keep speaking English and just throw in some Islamic words, like
I'll just start
and
speaking Farsi, and Armin's like, your accent
yeah,
is all messed up.
yeah. No, Puya is like noticing that too. Like, yeah. Okay, so it's not just me. Puya, by the way, is an Iranian outside of Iran, and Puya is saying he's noticing that too. Okay, and it's so amazing because they're not even familiar with what they're doing, and they come off as very like, you're not even doing it right. Okay, but it's so amazing how you hear them say the things that it's a leftist perception of how somebody who is Islamic in some way or form would say, because they themselves are not very familiar with their own. I mean, they are children of immigrants who are somewhat disconnected from that culture, or want to be disconnected
Or
from
immigrated
that
when they were
culture.
children.
Yeah, so they're like, if they act up more from acting like they're from Iran, if an actual person who lived in Iran looks at them and like see what they're behaving, and like this is like a caricature of what somebody who has Iranian culture would look like. Yeah, like
there's one specific person on YouTube who we watch, and they got the big beard, and you say the funniest stuff. One, the way the person speaks Farsi, you're
what's
like,
his name?
Dr. Heem.
Dr. Heem, yeah.
You're like if you saw his beard, even the religious people in Iran don't wear their beard this way. Like if people backing Iran, because he always flexes that he's an immigrant when he was 7, but like
and
all of his references are dated, and you're like, if people in Iran saw the way that you presented yourself now, they would trash you because you're like this big beard. You like,
but he's not
because they would stereotype you as trying to look Arab, and obviously we know how that would be perceived.
No, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, people like their beards in Iran because of like, but different styles of beard. But if they're like the anti,
you know what I'm talking about.
I know, but like he leans into it in a different. It's not just about having a beard. It's just about the way he keeps referring to it as if like, oh, this is like, oh, I look like a terrorist. Like he wants to be like, oh, look, I have the stereotypes of somebody who would be discriminated against because I come from Iran, right? Like he actively tries to look like that and then highlights it. Okay. Also, he's like plays into the fact that he comes from Iran by like saying things in Persian and says them really poorly and badly, but he knows his community is not like an Iranian community. His community is like
progressives.
American and Canadian progressives, and he seems like he wants to be accepted in that crowd. By one of the way he does that is by constantly highlighting how part of this exotic Middle Eastern background that he is, even though it doesn't seem to be connected with that community at all, right? He seems like he's fully Canadian, right? Like he's more Canadian than most Canadians, but like he was play. Yeah, so I don't know. It just seems like that. Yeah,
it's pretty funny, and this is obviously like something you can observe in tons of different diaspora communities. Yeah. Anyways, I always thought that was so funny when you watch
I cringe
because yeah, exactly, it drives you crazy.
Stop it.
You're like, what are you talking about? We don't even act that way. What are you saying?
No, okay, you're making it sound like I am gatekeeping who gets to be. No, that's like that's not what I'm saying. You know, right? Like it's not like, I mean, I'm not saying like, oh, if you have a beard, you're acting like you're exotic, or like we, like who am I to say we? I don't believe in collectivism. I don't say we. Okay, I say them. Like I don't even act like I belong to that group, right? There's no issue with just being the way you want to be, but I can see that it's not just the way you want to be. I can see that you're just like, using it as a tool to be taken more seriously. Like, I'm not gatekeeping. I never said we don't act like this. Like, there's no we acting like this. Like, we're individuals, right? There's no right way to be part of a certain group. Like, that was not my claim. I just think, like, I can tell that this is a strategic identity rather than a genuine identity. I think. Okay, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. Well, what I meant to say was, like, in terms of what he puts forward as a claim, you're like, I don't actually think that that's necessarily reflective. It's not gatekeeping, but obviously for you, it's the inauthenticity that drives you crazy.
Yeah, but I just want to be clear, because I never said we, because I don't even see myself as part of the culture that I'm referring to, so I wouldn't refer to it as we. Yeah. But
That was just my poor choice of words.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay.
Secular Sakai is asking, do either of you have any opinions on the Somali atheist Ayaan Hirsi Ali, her views, and her activism? Well, obviously, yeah, there's a lot. She's an incredible woman, has an incredible story, and has accomplished a lot. I love the work of her foundation, the Ayaan Hirsi Ali Foundation. I think they do amazing work to work on legislation to help push for the criminalization and punishment of female genital mutilation, as well as doing so much to work with legislators to help fight against child marriage, which is something that's very should be talked about way more in this country. So I love the work of the AHA Foundation. I think,
however,
yeah, there's lots of things that I admire about her still, but a lot of her cultural and political commentary is just not good.
All right, so those are more important, okay? The positive things about Ayaan Hirsi Ali and the work she has done are more important than what we're about to say, which are the negatives, okay? None of these negatives should dismiss the important work she's doing with her foundation, okay? The negatives are that she has heavily leaned into the narrative of fear-mongering, using fear-mongering tactics against Muslims, okay? Ayaan Hirsi Ali's narratives doesn't a lot of times come across as anti-Muslim, not anti-Islam, and fear-mongering in a way and dividing people. It's like an us versus, like, us versus them narratives. I think she has accepted the embrace of a lot of far-right people to the extent that she has found a home there. Unfortunately,
far-right?
Yeah, far-right narratives. Yeah, very much far-right narratives. Like, no, like the death of Europe and like being the replacement theories. These are far-right narratives, right? Having migrants coming out and making, the sky fall and completely like destroy the heritage, completely destroying, I don't know, the defending Judo-Christian values, seeing this as a destruction of Western culture, and all these are fear-mongering. None of that. The anti-immigration stances as a whole, right, is pure cringe. As you know, we are here very much anti-Islam and pro-immigration, right? All the things that they told us about the death of Europe and everything like that, it ended up being completely false. If you look at in Germany, and the way that they accepted migrants, and people thought like, okay, this is the end of Germany. Germany's problem right now is that they didn't have enough migrants. They're realizing that they actually need more migrants. Okay. Also, the idea of like preserving Europe and North America against these people just classifies people into better, and like what about them? Okay, like we are any group of people that divide, anybody who comes up with this narrative of dividing the world and creating an us versus them narrative and trying to defend the entire planet, half of the planet against the invasion of the other half, that is are these are narratives that doesn't treat our planet as something that is worth defending as a whole, and it doesn't treat all people on this planet as worthy of happiness and equal to everyone else, right? Like when you look at migrants and you're looking at them as people who are invading your countries and could lower the standards of lives. You're not looking at these migrants as fellow human beings that also deserve happiness. They also deserve a chance to prosperity. But go on.
Well, in fact, the narratives that she pushes regarding immigration would have harmed her as a young woman.
Right.
Would have harmed her ability to find safety and security as a young woman. And her narrative surrounding this immigration harm other ex-Muslims trying to find sanctuary and security and safety around the world today. So one of her recent books that she put out is called Pray. I haven't read it, but Maryam Namazi wrote an article in response to that book. I don't know what the article's called, but Maryam very eloquently writes exactly about how these ideas that she's putting forth, one are antithetical to like her own journey and actively harm other people like her. So I would suggest people go look that up because Maryam is so eloquent. Wait, let's take. I can take one more question. This is just a silly question. I won't count this. Random guy's asking, is it dumb to be a patron yet not put questions there and then show up when they are live and wonder if they'd see your question? Well, it's certainly not to your benet.
Put your question there on Patreon then.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Is asking, do you think there is a pipeline for the Wokistani Mujahideen that leads to dangerous cults like Nation of Islam and Black Hebrew Israelites? This is a complicated question because the flavor of like today's Wokistani Mujahideen is very different than a lot of these organizations. So these organizations predate the current flavor of Wokistani Mujahideen, and a lot of the narratives and ideologies that are utilized or kind of the cultural inheritances of these groups date back as far as the 1920s, if not earlier. So there's quite a long history of these types of groups or groups that are have ideologies that are very closely affiliated. I think they certainly play. I think if I was in these organizations, it's a very easy tool to use these kinds of narratives and then say, okay, but our group is the group that takes us to the next step. Like when we interviewed San Miguel, if you guys want to look up, we interviewed a former Black Hebrew Israelite on our channel. So go look up that interview here on this channel. Great interview. Miguel is such a nice guy. And he talked about there's a lot of these narratives that these groups use are in a lot of the culture already, especially hip hop culture. Like Nas, the rapper Nas, uses a lot of references that align with some of the Black Hebrew Israelite beliefs very well. A lot about being kings, about finding this, reconnecting with this stolen identity, reconnecting with an identity of power, of royalty, of grandeur that helps people give meaning and a narrative in their life, especially for people whose cultural heritage has been ripped from them through the transatlantic slave trade. So creating this narrative helps give them an overarching story to their life that to kind of grapple with the meaning of trying to reconnect with something that they can call their own. And a lot of these similar narratives are throughout many different forms of pop culture. So if you're growing up and you're kind of attuned to these things, you're kind of already, you hear about these things, you're kind of familiar with these ideas already. And then you might just be presented to this group in a more, at maybe a vulnerable time in your life, and then you get on board. So there's some crossover, but I don't think it's necessarily a pipeline.
Yeah, my impression was not that there's a pipeline. My perception was that they just defend them and provide cover for them, or dismiss how bad they are.
Yes, definitely that. Definitely.
So there's that, but yeah, maybe not a pipeline. Like I don't know, like the Nation of Islam, they're like straight up like Nazis, like basically. And it's so amazing how these Wokies like defend them, even though like this is exactly what you're supposed to be against. This is everything that you're supposed to be. Like these people are using I mean they're anti-Semitic. They are using they use
deeply homophobic.
Deeply homophobic, use ethnicity and bloodlines as a way to claim superiority. And so like you're leftist. You should be against all of this.
The most racist people I have ever talked to are Black Hebrew Israelites. I have never met someone more willing to say the craziest, absolutely wild anti-Black stuff boldly straight to the faces of Black people than a Black Hebrew Israelite. Like, I have never seen men so willing to just absolutely drag Black women through the mud. It's wild. It's absolutely wild.
People want to know what they said. Like we can't. I don't think we can.
I literally can't even say it. I cannot say it. The craziest, the most hateful things I have ever heard said against Jewish people. Like, absolutely insane. What I find really interesting is for the Black Hebrew Israelites, the only thing that matters to them is paternal lineage. So say you're someone who's biracial, or if you go through your ancestral lineage, if you at any point find like a white ancestry on the paternal side, then you're dead to them. Basically, you're not the chosen people, and God will eliminate you when the time comes. So that's the only thing they care about. And so I've heard them say just hateful things straight to the faces of Black people just because they had like a white dad. They're like, look at me, I'm so Black as hell. Like,
I just want to be clear though, like we're just talking about Pakistani Mujahideen. Most of the left does not.
I was talking about Black Hebrew Israelites.
No. I'm talking about when people Pakistani Mujahideen defending Black Hebrew Israelites or Nation of Islam. We're not talking about the left. We have to be careful. So we are accusing the Pakistanis of being people who make excuses for these kind of groups, okay? But we're not accusing the left of doing such a thing, okay? The Pakistanis represent a fringe group within the left, and the vast majority of the left would be horrified by anything these groups represent, okay? So I just want to be responsible because a lot of people see going after woke, the people who are like extremely wokey, as a way to dismiss the entirety of the left, and we should not be doing that. And maybe I actually criticize myself as well here because I keep using the word right leaning and far right interchangeably. Okay, so I have to just be more careful about not doing that. Okay, because I also a lot of the I mean, I am very much anti-right wing, so that's fine, I guess. I don't know, but I shouldn't like act like everything that the far right does reflects what the entire right is about. Okay, even though I am against all of the right. Yeah, because I do see a lot of
I need to get my ass back on here more when time allows. Always enjoy both of your takes. Well, thank you, Mars.
Ah.
We miss you. It's always great to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, we missed you. All right.
I think we should call it a day.
Yeah.
I got some work to do.
All right, guys. Make sure you like the stream. Do not leave. Nobody, guys. We have used the patronage. Okay, all our patron support and link in the description. Okay, so guys, make sure you become a patron if you want to make sure that we answer your questions in the next Q&A. Okay, we have gathered all your patronage money, and we now have an Atheist Republic army with a very, very effective intelligence team that tracks down everybody who is not liking our videos. Okay, so just make sure you like the video. Okay, if you watch 2 hours of our stream without actually paying us back with a like that doesn't even cost you anything, you will be hunted down. Okay, we can promise you. Like, it's a joke. It's a joke. YouTube. Okay, YouTube. All right.
Oh my god.
Okay, but like the video. Like the video. Doesn't cost you anything. Helps the channel grow. Okay. And also, do not become a patron. Again, reminder to those idiots: you are a moron if you support us financially while struggling financially. Okay, you're an idiot. You have lost your mind. Okay, if you are struggling financially, do not support us financially. Okay, so for everyone else, link to our Patreon is in the description. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much, and talk to you very soon in 2 days. Well, when we'll
Yes,
cover
for the news. Oh, it's gonna be juicy.
Okay. Subscribe to make sure we get the news live stream that we have in 2 days. All right. Bye.
Bye.